Welcome back to another episode of the Jesus Cartel. I am currently as close as I get to loathing because Clay turned the air on right before we started filming, and he knows that I get cold easy, and he doesn't care.
No, I'm just very happy that you explained what loathing was. I was lost for a minute.
Did I explain it?
Well, yeah, when you said
you use the
with
context
the air,
clues.
then I got the context clues.
Yeah, this is no good.
I can shut it down.
I'm not happy about it.
I'm really cold now.
No, you're not. Are you
Yeah,
I am. This is what
I
you
wasn't hot. I was just thinking that when I started drinking this coffee, that I would get hot. So I just turned it down 1 degree to have the air come on. But really, it's William Gill's fault. You know, I went into the gym this morning trying to mind my own business, you know, and do my little workout. And I was going to get on the elliptical and do 1 mile on the elliptical. You just started back doing the elliptical. I was doing a half a mile. Now I'm doing a mile. I got it from doing it in a little over 10 and a half minutes to now I'm doing it in 9 minutes and 15 seconds. And so I was going to do that this morning, but I got to talking to Will, and he was on the elliptical next to me. And next thing I know, I'm doing closer to 2 miles. And so, so now I'm a little hotter than, and we're filming early in the morning.
It's weird how, like, a little bit of distraction goes so far with, like...
Yeah, for me, it's not ever been my body.
Mm-hmm.
It's always my mind.
Sure.
And my mind is weak compared to my body when it comes to working out because it's not something that I've done my whole life. It isn't something that I've grown up. Now, my legs are strong because I've carried a lot of weight my whole life, and I'm carrying a lot less weight now, and my legs are still real strong. So it's never that I pulled a hamstring or my calves hurt or whatever. I just get bored,
There's a quote, and I don't know exactly where it comes from, but I've heard it a lot in my life, and it's that when your mind says that you're done, you're really only 40% done.
Okay.
And I don't know that there's any merit to the statistics of it, but the mindset of it is something that has helped me a lot in those type of situations because having done some things that require substantial cardio or get yourself in a bind that only cardio can get you out of, your mind breaks first, always before the body does. And it's like you just want to quit because you feel like it doesn't matter how hard you push at this point, you're not going to get it done. And that little quote is like been enough to convince me to keep shoving, even though I felt like I didn't have anything else to give.
So it helps you right there knowing,
yeah,
I got you.
Like I said, don't know that there's any merit to it whatsoever.
Right. I know for me, being on the elliptical, minutes 2 through 3 are the worst ever. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if I do it every single day. It doesn't matter how good I get at it. It doesn't matter how long I do it. Minutes 2 through 3. And that's the reason why when I started back doing it again, I only did 5 minutes because I knew if I could get through minutes 2 and 3 and tell myself I'm only going to 5, then it would be okay.
Yeah.
And now, going to 10 or whatever, and I'm having to really do some mind control. But at the same time, talking to Will, because when I'm on elliptical, it's 100%. We're not going to grandma's house. We're getting it. And but today, William's got basically the same pace, and we're having a great conversation. How we are. We probably we definitely saved the world a couple times. We bought a lot of property. We flipped some houses. And we talked about how young people today are terrible, and we talked about how we're raising our kids to be better than that. So,
every time y'all talk, that's basically
that's the whole conversation every single time. We love it.
That's good. That's good stuff.
We love it. It's like rapid fire,
Yeah, Will's good people, man. I like him a lot. No, that's good. I've got all kind of like flashbacks to different times I've had to like shove through walls that I hadn't thought about in a long time, because of that little quote. And it's and that's something I think is important for viewers is that it's not always like a trick or anything like that helps you. Sometimes it's just mindset, and that's what that little quote did for me. Because again, I would venture to guess that there's no scientific data to back that. If there is, awesome. But I've certainly never seen it. I can tell you that. There's no reason for me to believe that quote is true. But the mindset of it was enough to help me endure beyond some things. And so a lot of times, man, a shift of your mind is the most crucial component. And, for me in running, especially anything cardio related, the first 60 seconds are the worst. Once I get started, I'm fine. Once I can get moving. But the initial getting started is very, very difficult for me. And I think that a lot of people relate to that, It's the worst part of me. The worst part of a diet is starting. That first day is not, maybe the excitement of it is cool, but like when it comes to running, it's not exciting to me. I don't enjoy it at all. And like your muscle, while everything's getting warmed up, I guess, those first few steps are like, my knees hurt, my shins hurt, my calves hurt, my feet hurt. And then as everything just kind of like gets pumping and flowing, then it kind of goes away and doesn't come back until you really start to get in the weeds of the run or whatever you're doing. And so, yeah, that's interesting. Well, other than that, what's been going on with you?
Man, like I said last week, Felt Cute started church, so we had our first service.
Heard it was terrible.
Man, yeah, it was absolutely terrible. Yeah, no, man, it was outstanding. Packed the place out. It was great. Saw some people I hadn't seen in a long time. Brand new people showed up again. Most of them I knew, some of them I didn't know. Had a good bit of people that were just happened to be out of town. That'll be back, for this week, but really couldn't have went any better. Somebody that I know real well and respect real well came for the first time, and she was like, you never would have known this was the first Sunday. You know, of course, we've been having, church now for 2.5 months, but different location, different, atmosphere, kind of deal. But, there's lots of things that we could have done better. But what we did well was let God have his way in that church and not try to be too churchy and not try to be so formal, but to let him have his way. And he definitely did.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that. We went and played travel ball for the first time. And,
Saturday only?
Yeah, it was not good. Our little team was fine. There's another little team in there that was fine. Basically what it is an 8-year-old tournament. And when we got there, our first game was against another 8-year-old team. And then we realized that was the only other 8-year-old team. Was the one that we played. The rest of the teams were much older. And so apparently the people who put the tournament on put on an 8U tournament, but couldn't get enough teams in it. And so they just opened it up without telling our coaches or the other team that showed up's coaches. And so we start playing the next team, and these kids are good. And we've got no reason to think they're not 8, but they're very good.
Now, is 8-year-olds coach spits?
Yes.
So this other team that's 9 or 10, they're doing coach spits too?
Yes.
Oh, my.
Yes. And
and in their league, they're really supposed to be doing girl pitch.
Correct. And so I'm watching this little girl at shortstop throw absolute rockets over to first base. And my only thought is, Aria is much further behind than I realized. Like, you know what I mean? I knew Aria wasn't the best kid her age, but she's pretty good. And then I'm watching these kids, and I'm like, apparently we're not very good, because these kids are unbelievable, and they're hitting just tanks. And I'm not coaching. I'm a bystander, and so I'm sitting behind the other team's dugout. When you go to a ball tournaments like that, you're just trying to find a place to sit. It doesn't really matter where. You're trying to find some shade, find a place to sit.
You're in Columbia?
Yeah, and we've also got 6 of us, and so it's finding a location to hunker down is a little more difficult. So you just get it where you can get it. And so we're behind the other team's dugout. And the first base coach, because we're like on the outfield fence. The first base coach turns towards the outfield, and I'm like, I know her. And I just yell reflexively, not on purpose, pure reflex. I go, Macy. And she turns around and she looks at me. And I can see that she recognizes me, but doesn't know who I am. And I just go, I'll talk to you in a minute. And went and caught her in between innings. And so I go, and she is the younger sister of somebody I grew up playing ball with.
Okay.
And I go talk to her. I was like, hey, you know, I'm Andrew. I used to play ball with your brother. And she was like, oh my God, yeah, you know. And so, you know, we got to visit, and I said, well, small world, man. How awesome is that? Which one's yours? She goes, the shortstop. I was like, that kid is incredible. It's fantastic. And she goes, yeah. And then she looks at me, she goes, I really don't know how we ended up here. I don't know how this just kind of thrown together. I certainly don't know how I ended up coaching it. We play 10U travel softball, fast pitch. And I was like, really? Yeah, how old is your girl? She's like, she's 9, about to be 10. I was like, that would explain the significant difference in skill level, as my child is 7. And we have 6-year-olds also on our team.
Yeah.
And so, but the coaches and players on that team, they were all really cool, super good. Now they're much better than we were, but they were very, very nice. And you could tell by talking to Macy that she had no idea that
They wasn't coming trying to smoke up a tournament, right?
Yeah, she had no idea. She wouldn't have told me if they were trying to do something squirrely, you know. And so I was just like trying to process this information. And so I'm thinking that this is just an outlier situation at this point. And so we go, after that game, we go to watch the next game, and there is a girl nearly my size playing. And I'm like, okay.
Something's wrong.
There's a problem.
You go talk to their coach, and they're like, I don't really know what happened. Last week we were playing 12U.
Yeah, something is great. Like, this girl is massive, and she can swing, and she can run. She's got the coordination of a young lady. You know what I mean? She's not a big, goofy 8 to 10-year-old.
Right.
She's coordinated, and she almost bombed one out of Caldwell's high school field, and she hit the fence. She smoked it, and I'm just like, okay. This is not good. And so I go find our coach and say, hey, look, man, I don't think it's a good idea that we stick our 6 and 7-year-olds in front of what I can only assume is a 12-year-old 35 feet away. I don't think that this is a great plan. And so I had just told Courtney before I went and talked to him, I was like, I don't think we're going to be staying for this. Like, this is not worth the situation here. And he's like, you could tell he's flustered because he's just figuring out all this. So we're all finding out at the same time. And he's a really good guy. And he's like, God, I'm so sorry. He said, this has never happened before. And all the other parents are telling us, like, hey, look, we've never had this issue because this is our first tournament. We're the only people that's our first tournament with them. And they're thinking we will never come back because of this. And everybody's trying to, like, keep us from but they're all great people. We know that this is an outlier situation. And you could tell by his reaction that it was an outlier situation. But I said, really, man? There's only 2 options here. Option 1, because the flyer says 8U on the flyer that they sent you. I said, option 1 is you need to talk to the coach that we're about to play. Let him know that you're only going to play the kids that he has that are 8, as this is an 8U tournament, as was advertised. Or we can go. You know, this is kind of our situation here. And he's like, I'm gonna go talk to the coach. And so, and he's already tried to kind of maneuver this thing around. This wasn't like an idea I came up with. He's trying to get it figured out. I just hadn't spoken about it yet. I was kind of trying to take it in. So he goes over and talks to the coach, and then some of the parents start, just let them play. It's like, just let them play. We have 6-year-olds on our team. No, we're not just gonna
just let them go to hospital. Right.
And so I just told Shane. He came back. He's like, man, I don't know what to do. I was like, look, if this goes the way that it is slated to go, so I'll tell you how this works out. We go out there, and one of these gals hurts one of our children, and it's going to spill over to the parents. And I, as a father of one of these kids, is going to end up in the middle of a scuffle. And we're going to be on the news. And my child is going to see a side of me she's never seen before. and it's all preventable. This is all preventable. And so I don't want to be on the news. I just don't. And so I reckon we're probably going to, head out. And he's like, you think we should go? I was like, I think we should go. He goes, let's go. And so we packed up and we moved on. And
So was there not a tournament director you could talk to or something?
he was the coach of the team with the 12-year-old.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. And so
So here's the first issue, because I've experienced a lot of this and can give you some, inside information and different things. So, because play through all those ages and different things is this. First off, don't play in Caldwell Parish.
figured that out.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing. Not much good comes out of Caldwell Parish.
This is a reason there's all those speed traps. Trying to get people to stay for longer.
Yeah, because
Nobody
everybody's
wants to be
leaving, speeding to get out of there. No, I mean, seriously, when you're dealing with Caldwell baseball and stuff, and I had a team, and we are on the baseball podcast, but
true.
I had a team that was unbeatable. 8th grade, junior high ball, 8th grade ball, and I had a team that was unbeatable. In fact, almost every team that played us, after getting spanked the first time, they decided to not look. There, the air went off, and now I'm getting hot already. But anyhow, every team after we spanked them the first time wouldn't even play us the second time, But we went to Caldwell to play, and they proved me wrong. It was so much home cooking, and they had a guy that probably dropped out of Fresh Start after his first week because he had it all figured out, and calling balls and strikes. But yeah, it's tough. So that was the first thing you did wrong, was go try to play a tournament in Caldwell Parish.
Yeah, that's on me.
Yeah, other than that, I have no advice.
Yeah, but I was super thankful to have coaches that had the maturity to step away from that situation, because the difficulty there, and I talked about it with some of the guys, the difficulty is you paid your money, you drove all the way out there, you don't want to leave and not play.
But you didn't play 2 games, right?
Yeah. But
How bad did y'all get beat in the second game?
It wasn't atrocious. It wasn't atrocious. We lost both games. Neither of them were horrendous. And you could also tell the first game, like, the girls didn't hit well. Our girls didn't hit well. They hit significantly less than their ability. And so that game would have been a much closer game had they hit normally. But anyways, I was appreciative that the coaches responded to the situation the way they did. Everybody's like, man, please come back. And my deal is, we will, because of the way you handled that situation. Had you tried to play that anyways, you'd have never seen us again.
Yeah, because, y'all wasn't just sold out on it anyhow.
No.
Hey, we'll go try it out, see what happens.
Yeah.
But if the anointing's not there, it's just not there.
That's right. And so, no, I appreciated the way that they handled it, and the parents and things like that, because that situation could have turned sideways, and it didn't.
Right.
Not for us.
Right.
Not
Now,
for us.
to our audience, just so you know, that you can be aware of the presence of God in all situations.
That's right.
Even playing softball. And I misspoke. I apologize. We aren't on a baseball podcast. We're on a softball podcast now. And I apologize
for
for
the
that.
next 2 weeks.
Yeah, for all
Till
the
baseball
women in the
workouts start back.
to all the women in the world, I apologize. We are on a softball podcast. But the Spirit of God can be strong in you and heard by you in all situations, including being on the ball field. Now, and you could say, yeah, well, then why didn't you just play the game, and then if something bad happened, then don't handle it bad? Well, that's great, but I'm not going to go just sit in a bar and not drink, and I'm not going to go hang out at the strip club and wear a blindfold, and we don't put ourselves in those situations. So when we see that a situation has great potential of going bad, we don't decide, we're going to handle it well when it all goes not good. No, we remove ourselves from that situation.
And the other thing, there's 2 other things that go with that are super important. One is, I can't control what other people do in situations. And so why would I send my child or anyone's child in a situation that could be potentially dangerous for them. You're like, well, nobody's going to hit the kids. One, you don't know that. Mm-hmm. Two, people do stuff by accident all the time. This danger, you could be trying to hit me and hit a kid. There's numerous ways I could go. The other thing is the appearance of wrongdoing is as bad as wrongdoing. And so when you put yourself in a position and we get in this huge scuffle, even if I don't hit anybody, even if the only thing that I do is protect myself and try to break the whole situation up, you know what that looks like on camera? You know what that looks like in the paper? Mm-hmm. It looks like, hey, local pastor incites riot at 8-year-old softball tournament.
For sure. I mean, there was just a video this
all
week
of which isn't true.
Right.
But that's the way that story goes out.
There was just a video on it this week.
Rayville.
Right. Oh, is that where it was?
Yeah,
I didn't even know where it was.
Rayville.
Yeah.
It just happened.
I was hoping it was far off, but I was sitting here. Yeah. And so we try to stay. And here's another thing I know from travel ball and people and everything is that most of the kids playing travel ball enjoy playing baseball or softball. Yep. They enjoy playing baseball or softball. They don't necessarily enjoy playing travel ball. Mm-hmm. The parents enjoy the travel ball because they get to say, my kid's playing travel ball. Mm-hmm. They feel elite because they're playing travel ball. They like to go travel and stay in hotels and, drink beer at nighttime and talk about how good their kid is and being in the pool and that kind of stuff. And so that's where a lot of the travel ball comes from,
So obviously that's not appealing to us, but you are correct.
Well, yeah.
I grew up in it.
Right. So,
I remember the
parents. When there's an issue on the field, it's not going to be between the kids. Mm-hmm. It's going to be between the parents.
Yeah.
Because the kids, in their mind, they're just playing ball.
That's right.
But in the parents, we're playing travel ball. And how dare you call Junior out, because we're travel ball kids.
All the things that you named that most parents like are the things that I despise about it.
I hate traveling. I despise it so much. I don't like driving to work.
That's the reason why I was shocked when y'all even did it. But then when the precedence of what you told me, hey, we're only going to be 2 hours away. We're only going to play on Saturdays. We're not, going to play on Sundays. Then that eliminated a lot of the bad that I see.
Yeah. We're also not going to play every weekend because we have other kids. And, and that was one of the things that talking to Courtney about. It's like, well, what are we going to do when all of them are old enough to play? Yeah. We're going to go to 4 tournaments every week. Like, it's not reasonable. We'll have to figure it out because we're not going to make the other kids suffer for wanting to go around play travel ball. I grew up with almost no relationship with my sisters because I played travel ball.
Yeah, so you said last week they didn't even come.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No relationship. I played ball all during went to school, played ball all during the week, and then on the weekends we left and went and played more ball. And so I really didn't get to know my sisters until they were adults. And so it's there's a lot that comes with it, and so you just gotta be careful how you navigate things like that. Anything in excess is bad.
That's right. And we try to preach that on here so many times. Something else I want to know, I guess this kind of be get to know you segment or whatever, but you've been doing some external preaching and stuff lately, right?
Yep.
So traveling to other churches and stuff. Tell us about that.
Yep. So there are a lot of churches in the area that don't have pastors, and this extends out into like Tensas and Richland and some other places as well. But there are a lot of places that don't have pastors, and somehow last year there was a text message thread that I just found myself in. I don't know who started it. I genuinely have no idea where it came from. Me and Kyle were talking about this the other day because Kyle ended up in it, and we really don't know. And it was basically like saying, hey, look, there's a lot of churches around here without pastors that need people to come and share the gospel. Would you be interested in doing that? And I was like, yeah, sure, Which, to be honest, I wasn't super fond of at the moment. And so I was like, yeah, I'll be available, but I'm not going to be like doing this all the time, But I really didn't realize what a need or an opportunity it was at the time. And so as the next few months went by, and because I'm just kind of trying to get myself established and everything I got going on, I always wear a lot of hats, but a lot of my hats were new. And so I'm trying not to muddy the waters of everything I'm doing by being gone half the time as well. And so over the next few months, like 4 or 5 guys from our church are preaching just about every Sunday, all of them, different places. And there's like a reputation spreading within the community about these guys preaching and how well they're doing and how the churches are kind of like revitalizing a lot and things like that, just because of the word, nothing else, just the word. And so, man, that was really exciting. I was super proud of those guys. And several more months went by. They're just doing a great job, doing great work, and my schedule kind of got more normal, and I just felt the Lord tell me, hey, look, it's time to start going. It's time to start preaching more. And so I jumped back in there and been running around with these guys, and man, we're having a great time just getting to share the gospel every week, getting to meet some awesome people, kind of see a lot of the good, bad, and ugly of where a lot of churches are. It is both encouraging in a lot of ways. It's also very sad in a lot of ways, some of the things that you see at some of the places. And every place is different. Some places are full of life and full of hope. Some places feel like they're just slowing down the death of their church. And then you get some churches, like there's a Oak Grove church right down the road here in Winsboro. Dude, like, I think they're on the cusp of something incredible. Like they're people, you can tell, like they're hungry for it. They're seeking after the Lord. They don't have a pastor right now, but I think as soon as they get one, provided they get a pastor that's a true believer in the gospel. I hate to say that, like some pastors aren't, but they're not. They're not. I'm just to tell you, like, if the gospel that you believe in doesn't set you free from yourself, then you don't believe in the gospel. If the gospel that you're teaching and preaching has you trapped in cycles of sin for the entirety of your life, and that's just what life is until Jesus comes back, that they're not reading the gospel. I don't mean that ugly. I'm just telling you, like it says over and over and over and over again a believer's relationship to sin, and it's always removed. It's always removed. He's separated as far as the east is from the west. Blessed is a man whose sins are not counted against him. He chooses to remember your sins no more. It talks about in Colossians how he, nailed the law to the cross. Like there's, as a slave, as a son, we're no longer subject to sin. We're not under the law, we're under grace.
We're dead to sin.
And that's just the ones that specifically reference sin, and there's way more of them, by the way. That's not even talking about the ones that tell you that who you were before is actually completely dead. And so they're just not reading script. They're just not reading it if that's what they're teaching. So if you get a pastor like that will stick you back under that, it can take a church like Oak Grove that's on the cusp of explosion, and it can actually put a wet blanket over it and kill it. And so they got to be very careful of whoever they select as pastor. But
they got an opportunity there.
But they seem to have people a lot of wisdom, and they seem to be being led by the Spirit and being willing to be led by the Spirit of God, and they're sensitive to it and they're listening for Him. And so I'm very encouraged by what they have going on over there. And there's several other churches that are doing the same thing. We go to a church called Maryland Baptist in Tinsall fairly regularly, and man, they got some wonderful people out there. And I personally think I know who their pastor is supposed to be. I think I'm pretty positive, actually. Just kind of waiting on that guy to step into that calling, and it's going to be a bit of a leap for him. But I felt like I heard it, and I mentioned it to a couple of the other guys that come preach here with me, and they all felt the same.
Is he in the church now?
He is.
Oh, okay.
And they all felt the same way, and that's the best way.
Yeah, it makes
that's
it
the
so
best
much
way.
better.
Somebody who was raised up there, and is already a part. And so
you're mostly going to smaller Baptist churches
primarily
that
yes.
haven't had a pastor in a while. And even with that, there's lots of different dynamics.
Oh yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
It's massive. No two have been
Yeah.
close to
So
the
you're
same.
having to navigate. I mean, you're there to preach the gospel, but at the same time, you want it to be received. So you have to navigate those different dynamics that are
Yeah,
going on.
and it's challenging, but it's not, because the message doesn't change.
Yeah.
You got to give them the gospel, and like there are some churches. I'm not going to name any of them. There's some churches when I go to preach, like I can tell within the first 5 minutes, it's like, ooh, they don't like this. Tough cookie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not about to pull back and try to make this more digestible for you. Like yeah, I'm going to give you the gospel. It's the only gospel, and I can't shift it because it doesn't fall in line with what it is it doesn't fall in line with where people justify keeping certain sinful things in their life and not eradicating them, because they feel like there's a version of the gospel that allows for them to hold on to some of those things, and there's not. And so when I start shoving up against that, which I always do, you can see that certain people squirm, and sometimes you can see whole congregations squirm, and they'll start looking at each other, and that's how I can tell. They start looking at each other, and they will literally shift in their seat the entire time you preach, and you can just tell. It's like, oh boy, like this is not going down well.
But if they don't invite you back, then they just don't invite you back.
Yeah, no, there's nothing for me to lose. You know, in the early New Testament, they were killed for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if the worst that I endure is that they don't ask me to come back, it's like, okay, you know. But that's the difficulty of it. Is like we got to get back to the gospel. I always suggested a series. No one will ever do it. I actually suggested it to Brother Dave years ago to make the gospel great again series. Do you remember me trying to push that?
I do.
And nobody would let me do it. But obviously the gospel's always been great.
Right.
But what the message that I was trying to communicate was, it's been watered down so much that it's lost a lot of its effectiveness. And so what we don't want is to preach against sin. Right? That's what a lot of people think, is that we're preaching against sin. If you heard me preach, and you're somebody who enjoys somebody who preaches against sin, you would enjoy hearing me preach. But I'm not preaching against sin. I'm preaching against you remaining in bondage to sin. And it's very different, you know, because some guys will just get up there and yell and tell you that if you drink alcohol, you're going to hell. And you know, it's basically you versus hell. And that's not the gospel. It's just not, you know, if the gospel, this is a story that I like to share. I don't know if I've shared it on here or not. Have I shared the toy box story on here?
I think so.
So, I know a lot of people have heard it, but I just shared it anyway. So when I was 5 years old, I used to watch Goosebumps and you know, I say read the books. I had the books, stuff like that. But I really like scary things. But I was a scared kid also, and so I didn't sleep well at night because I was always afraid. And I remember one night I heard a noise in my closet, and so I hollered for my dad. I was like, you know, Dad, I just started screaming, and he comes in there, he cuts the light on, and he's like, you know, what's going on? And I said, there's something in my closet, and I think it's coming to get me. And he had turned the light on, and so he opens the door and he looks in my toy box and he says, son, there's nothing in here. And right when he said that, he puts his hand in the toy box and he starts screaming, oh, and sticking his arm deeper in the toy box. So it looked like something was dragging him into my toy box. And so what I did was I jumped out of bed and I grabbed my dad on the leg and I just started pulling him, pulling him as hard as I could, trying to save him. And what I tell people is, fear kept me in the bed. Love got me out.
Amen.
Love got me out. And so for so many Christians, their conversion experience is a fear-based experience. It's like, if I don't do this, then I'm subject to damnation and eternal torment, which, sure.
Yeah.
But that's not the point.
Yeah.
If that's you, and I've been asking these Baptist churches this at the end of my sermons, I said, have you guys ever been to a big revival because I share that story, and then I said, have you ever been to a big revival where a bunch of people gave their life to the Lord? Then about a year passed, you don't know where they are, and it's been many years, and you still don't know where they are. And, everybody's like, yeah. I said, I can tell you where they are. They're in the bed.
Yeah.
They're in the bed. They're just waiting to die or for Jesus to come back, because that's the call of their life. They're mission complete.
Mm-hmm.
Mission complete, because they've got a misunderstanding of what the gospel is, because the way it was presented to them
Yeah.
was that this is this is a finality of a moment where you're either going to go to heaven or you're going to go to hell, and that's the entire purpose of your life, is to end up in one of those places later. And so they're just sitting in the bed right now. They're not doing it. There's a reason you haven't seen them, because you told them that was all that mattered. And you lied to them.
Yeah.
You lied to them. You have a calling on your life, and
Yes.
nobody talks about calling.
Yes.
And it's like a dirty word in a lot of churches, because people mix that up with working for salvation. It's not working for salvation. You're working from salvation, a place of Jesus having completed something on the inside of you. And so now we follow through in the works that he prepared for us in advance. You can't do those from the bed. You got to love people. You got to love Jesus. Jesus is the prize. He always has been. Heaven is a location. Jesus is the prize.
Amen.
Knowing him, intimate relationship with him. And we've messed that up so horribly in our churches, and where we've made heaven the prize. And Jesus is just a guy who gets us to heaven. He's basically
He's the middleman.
Yeah, he's the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And it's like, all of that is true, but it's not.
That's not all of it.
It's correct. And so for the gospel to be what it's supposed to be, we have to understand that Jesus, intimate relationship with Jesus, is the goal.
Amen.
And it's available right now.
Yes.
It's available right now. It's not available later. It's available right now. Heaven is a byproduct, and a great byproduct. I am excited to one day be in a location where there's no more pain and suffering and all the things. But that's a byproduct of that intimate relationship with Jesus. And there are byproducts of your relationship with me, which is why I was so worried at this softball tournament this weekend, because a byproduct of your relationship with me is that if somebody jumps on you, I'm going to involve myself in that scuffle.
Yep.
That is a byproduct of knowing me. It shouldn't be the purpose of knowing me. And if that's the only reason you and I have a relationship, we're not really friends. We're not really friends. Heaven is a byproduct of your relationship with Jesus. That's not the purpose of your relationship with Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so that's the message that I am bringing to these churches.
Amen. That's good. Paul says, I think it's 1 Corinthians 15, it says that he's reminding them of the gospel that they believed in,
Mm-hmm.
which is the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ.
That's right.
And so many times it's about fear and condemnation, but we need to remind them that, hey, because he died, then we died, and because he was buried and we were buried, and because he's resurrected, we're resurrected, and now we have a calling on our life to share the good news with everybody,
Right.
And so that's the part that a lot of people miss out on.
Yeah.
Because they're in these revivals, like you said, and they're just preaching, what happens, if you die, and they never get to do the follow-up message,
And why is nobody talking about the fact that Jesus never once shared the gospel that way?
There you go.
There was never a time where Jesus said, and look, I get it, and I hate to even say that it's been an effective tool, because I think that it's done so much more damage than we realize, but like do you know that you know that you know that you know that if you died today, you go to heaven. Right. It's like, why did we never see Jesus do that? Mm-mm. We never saw him do it. I mean, he talked about the reality of people who wouldn't believe, but that's not how he shared the gospel. Mm-mm. He didn't say, if you don't know for sure. Like, I just don't understand how we have adopted something so heavily that he never adopted himself. And
Amen.
So it's very confusing to me. And so we're trying to get back to the gospel's origins,
Amen.
Where it was powerful and effective,
Amen.
and changed lives forever. Paul didn't get saved and then hide. Paul got saved. His salvation was secure. And then he did a massive work,
yes,
as did all the disciples. And so it's like, we need to get back to that gospel, the one that produces that, not the gospel that gets me to heaven. And now I spend the rest of my life trying to push the line of what's allowed and what's not allowed and just not cross over it.
Yeah.
And it's like, But that's Christianity.
Yeah,
in
so it's the
America.
two extremes that we see, especially in the Bible Belt, is that it's either the person that gets saved and now they're secure and now they can go hide and it's about therefore no more in this personal relationship with God, and that's it. And then it's the other side that's just working their way, hoping that they don't mess up, and they're working their way, and then when they realize that, hey, they messed up, then they fall away from God. And really it's neither one of those things.
Yeah.
He wants you to accept him as your personal Lord and Savior. Say, hey, my way didn't work. God, I repent of my sins. I'm asking you to be the Savior of my world, to be the center of my world. Give your life to him, and then, because you accept it as a free gift, and then start doing good works for the kingdom of God so that the rest of your family members and stuff don't have to go to hell.
Yeah.
You know, it has nothing to do with your salvation. Hey, you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, but now go be that, light and shine. And so, yeah, man, it's gotten away from that a lot. But it's all about a one-time deal and not walking it out. And so I'm glad y'all are able to go and shed some light in those situations.
Yeah, we're trying to. We're trying to, and a lot of people are hearing it, and it's really, really awesome. It's a work of Jesus, and that's what we want it to be. We want it to be about Jesus and not us. It's part of the reason that we swap and move around, is because we don't want it to be about one man or one, like, well, this is Andrew's message or Kyle's message or Trent or Jeremy or Kevin or Jordy or Richie or anybody else, because then if it's about one man, then one man can destroy it too. That's the other thing. And so I'm not going to fall away from my relationship with Jesus, but if this was Andrew's message and I did, well, it would destroy all the work that was done. It's like if a judge gets nailed on corruption, they'll overturn every case he's ever tried. And it's the same kind of thing here. It's we have to make sure that people understand that this is just the gospel. It's not a new message. It's the original message. And you hear a lot of people try to lay claim to new teachings. And I mean, it's so common that you hear oh, it's this new word and it's going out, and it's there's no space for a new word. It's the original word that, mind you, we've gotten away from, and so it does seem new to a lot of people. But if we tell them it's new, you're basically giving them a heads up that it's wrong.
Yeah, Paul warns us about this in Galatians.
He
warns us about this big time.
Yeah, so it's not a new word. It's the original word, as it was intended. We're going backwards, not forward. We're going to the origin. And so the gospel in its origin has so much power. It is unbelievable. It's unmatched. And so we're just trying to get back to that. I say trying. We are getting back to that. And some people are receiving it, and lots of great things are happening. Some people are not receiving it, and we're hoping that those seeds plant and, somebody comes along that can nurture those into something, or,
there's some of these churches, there's a reason they don't have a pastor. Because they're not fertile ground.
Yeah.
And so, hey, you go and you give it the best shot, but you don't just keep sowing your seed in the unfertile ground.
Yeah.
You find the next one and see if it is. It's not that you don't give them a chance, but at the same time, you can't just keep, so many times people think that God tells them to give, or God tells them to plant, or God tells them to sow a seed or whatever, and he does. But it does matter the soil that you sow into.
I agree.
It does matter. Now, you can't judge a book by its cover, and you can't say, well, we're not going to go there but you do have to go test it out. And if you go in there and you're preaching the gospel and they're not receiving it, I don't think that it's our job to keep on doing it in that same exact spot with those same exact people. Yeah. I think that, hey, there's another one. Yeah. Let's move on, because I think that we are accountable for where we sow our seed.
I agree.
Where we plant our seed, and so many times that gets lost.
Let's just ruin this episode and keep on this, because there's too much.
Well, I was fixing to call out audible and not go to where we were going to go and go back to something that you said at Oak Grove. But if you got some, so that's what I was just fixing to do. I
was basically telling you we're not going to do
right.
The original
So
topic.
You said you said, you know, you were saying something when you were talking about the people at Oak Grove and how they're hungry for it, but you want to make sure that they don't get, you know, a pastor in there that you know, stifles that, you know, and everything. And, you know, because where you're going with that is they need to know who they are in Christ, right?
That's right.
And so I made a statement this past week in the sermon, and it wasn't the main part of the sermon, but I'd like to talk about it right now.
Yeah,
And I'll make the statement, and then I'll give a little 2-minute deal, and then I'll turn it over to you. So this will be the first time you heard it. But I made a statement is, when you know who you are, then you'll know what to do. You know, so many times you get in situations where you're overwhelmed, you don't know what to do. Softball situation. That coach did not know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? But you had to step up and show him what to do. Why? Because I'm not trying to offend anybody. It just is what it is. If they don't want to watch the show, that's fine. But you are a better dad and understand those situations than some of the other people there. And so because of that, then you knew what to do.
Sure.
And you knew how to handle it. And then because you handled it, then other people are like, oh yeah, that's right. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So when you know who you are, you'll know what to do. And this is an example I made in church Sunday. If you're Superman and Lois Lane's in trouble, and you know what to do. You go in the phone booth, you take your suit off, you put your leotard on, and you fly and you go protect her, right?
Yeah.
If I said in church, if the lights go out in here, and all of a sudden lights go out, and you're Trey Carrington, you know what to do. You get up and you go use your talents as an electrician. You know, if somebody's hungry and they walk into church, and your grandmother, you know what to do. She's probably got some food hidden somewhere, just in case a hungry person comes, right? If you're Andrew Skull and you see a potential bad situation out there that you can prevent, you prevent it because you know how those situations can go. And so in life, when you know who you are, then you know what to do. But so many times people are sitting on pews or sitting in dead churches. They're doing all these things and they don't know who they are, so they don't know what to do. So when you start telling them about callings and purpose and, you know, all these different things, they're lost because they thought their purpose in life was to not burn in hell.
Yeah.
That's all they've been preached. That's all they've been taught. That's all that's been instilled into them. And they think, hey, I've arrived. Because I'm not going to burn in hell in the sweet by and by. And so when you're in there and you're preaching, you know, the gospel to them, it sounds different because you're challenging them. You're not challenging them to not sin. You're challenging them to live life and live life more abundantly through the completed work of Jesus Christ.
That's right.
You know, so tell me, where does your mind go when we say, if you know who you are, then you know what to do?
Yeah. And so regarding the softball situation, here's what I truly believe about this weekend. I believe that the coach of our softball team would have arrived at the decision that we arrived at either way. I believe that because I know him.
You hope?
Huh?
You hope that he would?
I certainly hope. But and being that I know him, I do believe he would have. But the difference is I didn't have to think about it.
Amen.
And one of the major things in you know, he's wrestling with the weight of a lot of things. He's wrestling with the opinions of all of the parents, of all of the children, and how are they going to feel if I make this decision versus how are they going to feel if I make this decision. So he's wrestling the weight of that. And one of the things that is, one, Jesus was of no reputation. To actually be able to do the right thing always, you also have to be of no reputation, meaning you can't be concerned with what anyone thinks. You do what is right. When we do what is right 100% of the time. And everyone can hate it, and it does not matter. It does not matter. We're going to do what's right. And so I don't wrestle with those things. And so I was about to leave, and I had already told Courtney, I was like, hey, we're not staying. Yeah. And so the reason I went and talked to our coach was because I really wanted him to arrive at that same because I knew
he needs to make the call.
I knew it was the right call, and it would be better if we left as a team and I didn't just leave with Arya. But I was about to just leave with Aria,
Yeah.
just to make that clear. And so much so as I had told Courtney's mother, we're about to go. And she was like, oh, well, yeah. And this is what she said. And she's trying to think of all the people in the situation as well. And she was like, well, is that going to leave the team shorthanded? I said, hey, that's not my problem.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I love them, but I'm not sending my child to the slaughter
Yeah.
because I don't want people to think ill of me. I'm not doing it. I just won't. And obviously she agrees with that. It's just in the moment you're trying to consider everybody and there's so much.
yeah.
But again, I don't have to think about it. I know who I am.
So as your dad, as the dad,
Yeah.
that's your decision.
Mhm.
But as the head coach, you got to look at everybody.
Correct.
And hey, you got 6-year-olds out there that you asked to join your team.
Yeah.
Now you're going to go put them with a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, and so you got to know who you are. You're
Yeah.
the head coach. And the buck stops with you.
That's right. And
You know?
ultimately, that's the decision that he made.
Yeah,
And I was
great
super,
decision.
And I was
Yeah.
super proud of him. He made absolutely the right decision. Now, here's the other thing. You've got to learn as a Christian, this goes in with the no reputation thing. Personal glory, it's got to be set aside.
Yeah.
It's got to be set aside. And here's what I mean by that. And I don't say this often because I do hate the way that it sounds, but it is a reality. If there was someone in that ballpark that could beat me in a fight, I mean, the statistical odds of it are astronomically low. Astronomically low. There was a lot of personal glory and personal pride that I could have been swelled up with and said, I'm the baddest dude in this ballpark. We'll see who won. Who cares? You're not here to build
You'd
your
rather
kingdom.
not show that.
I'd rather be the guy who walks away and them yell, hey, look at him scared. Look at him coward. I'll walk to my vehicle all the same. Because it's not about me.
Right.
It's not about my glory. It's not about those things. But if you can't shelf those, you will make the wrong decision.
Yes.
Your pride will lead you to make the wrong decision. There's no amount of my pride that's going to allow me to make that decision and put my children at risk and make my children see something they got no business seeing.
Yeah.
If my children ever see me in a scuffle, it's going to be for survival.
Yeah.
It's not going to be because my feelings got hurt or my pride got hurt and I decided that I was going to show out. It will not happen. Why? Because what you said.
Yeah.
I know who I am. And when you know who you are, you know what to do. And who I am, first and foremost, is a son of God.
Amen.
And someone who is a representative of Jesus Christ. And there was only one way to remain both of those things at the level that I have to remain both of those things. And that was to wash my hands of this situation. Just admit that, hey, look, I didn't
This
do
is
my
not our
due,
situation.
I didn't do
Right.
my due diligence looking into this tournament before we came.
Yeah.
And because of that, because of my, not because of the coach's failure,
No.
because I didn't ask him those questions.
I should have known better from Caldwell Parrish. Yeah.
I didn't ask those questions.
Right.
That's on me. That's not on the coach. Did I say, hey, have you checked are we sure that I didn't do any of that, right? And so I am now subject to my own decision.
Now you will
Yeah.
every single time.
Yeah.
Have you asked them for the birth certificates
And
of these kids?
so it's nobody's fault but my own. I showed him the situation, and I have to wash my hands and say, hey, look, I made a bad call, and now I'm going to exit it. I'm going to exit it.
Yeah, so many people think, well, we're all in. We have to do it now. No. Don't never back yourself into a corner where you think you're all in and you don't have a decision to make.
And that's why
Yeah.
people stay in bad relationships for
Yeah.
so long. They're like, well, I've already invested so much time in it. It's like, okay, how much more do you want to waste?
Yeah. And that's where I was going with the planting the seeds. You
Yeah.
know, it's like you're still planting your seeds in the wrong, non-fertile soil. Get out of there.
Yeah.
You know, and so kind of the same way with bad relationships, or the same way with, well, we're here already and we've paid our money.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're still not going to do the wrong thing, you know. And so you see that, right?
So I'm laughing because I'm not going to name them, but I've got some family members that are very, very country people. And when the movie Brokeback Mountain came out,
Okay.
they, like, if you just watch the trailer, the original trailer that was released, and I'm sure there's been additional trailers since, but the original trailer that was released did not really lead you to believe anything about where the movie was kind of going.
Okay.
And so because this was back when people went to the movies.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't happen
Right.
much anymore. But they, as a family, went to go watch this movie.
Okay.
And when you figure out what's going on, the question is, Well, do you finish the movie? You paid for your tickets.
Mm.
Or do you admit that you made a mistake and walk away from it?
Yeah, I've
you
never
know?
seen that movie before.
Yeah.
Is there something wrong?
Yeah. So, fun fact about Clay, I met him when I went to his house and he was watching this movie. It's how we became friends. We sat and watched it together.
Never seen that movie
Yeah.
before.
So no, but that story always
Yeah, they
comes to
just
mind
all
when
in,
people
right, yeah.
people think about like, oh, I've already invested in it.
Yeah.
It's like, brother, okay.
Yeah.
Are you so prideful you can't admit that you made a mistake here and just walk away, or are you gonna force
Yeah,
yourself?
I paid my $7. Yeah. So, and I want to go somewhere in just a minute, but let me just say this. Becky and I, and I would dare say this, I may be wrong, but there was a period of time where we walked out of more movies than what we watched. Which sounds weird because maybe we should have done our vetting process better, and then Becky got better at that later on in life. She had apps on her phone where she was able to see exactly how many times they said this word or that word or did this. But for a while there, we wouldn't, and we would go to a movie that may even be PG or PG-13, and but it wasn't what we it didn't resonate with our spirit, and so we walked out of those movies a lot, and then we got better, I guess, at choosing movies. But we thought that if it was suitable for all audiences, that we were all audiences, but it didn't really work that way.
Yeah.
So we've done that several times to where we've walked out of situations with money involved. But something that you said earlier, talking about your family and it being your responsibility and different things like that, and that people may you had to leave your reputation at the door, so to speak. You used my family in the illustration stuff this past Sunday, when you preached.
I haven't told them that, by the way. I
right.
talked about Annalise and Elena and Cooper too, but Cooper's still in school. But I was basically giving them the short version of what a well-run family that is Christ-centered turns into as adults.
Amen. And one of those things that you told them is that we made decisions that may have not seemed popular, with the outside people at different times. We sheltered them in different ways. We did different things, and people saw that as different. And now they see that as, or should see that as, hey, they were onto something. Yeah. Well,
you were just lucky, Clay.
Yeah, that's all it was. Lucky 3 times in a row. Yeah. But at the same time, you can't do that and be so worried about, well, we paid our money to come to the thing, or we're already here, or let kids be kids, or what? No.
Yep.
We told you that we weren't going to receive gifts from Santa Claus, and you wrote Santa Claus on these items.
Yeah.
We're not giving them to them. You said that my kids would be graded on how they did on a project, not on how other people did on a project. No, we're not going to participate in that.
Yeah.
No, the rules were that we were coming to a 10U tournament, or a 8U tournament, not a 12U tournament. No, not going to participate in that. And we've done that several times. Hey, we made decisions for our family based on the premise of what was put out there. Now, hey, this movie is not PG rated in our mind, and so we're not going to participate in this. And if that means our whole family walking out, then we walk out. But I will say this, and I might have said this. I think I've said this on here before, but I'll say it again. We had a youth leader that my daughter had one time, and the youth leader asked her, said, how do you handle your parents being so strict?
Yeah.
And Annalise goes, my parents aren't strict. And she said, well, yeah, they are. They're strict. I just want to know how you handle it. And Annalise goes, well, tell me something that my parents don't allow me to do that would be good for me and that would glorify God. She's 13 years old at the time or whatever. And it was the same way. When you tell Aria, hey, we're going home, and you explain to her why, because when that 12-year-old hits that ball and it knocks that pitcher for a loop, and now all of a sudden she's got to have plastic surgery and messes her up and everything. Hey, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
There's a real reason why college softball players wear those masks and different things like that, you know.
And don't play against 6-year-olds.
Right. You're not on the same level. And so I've just found out that my kids have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Not go away from it. So it's not like you're depriving your kids, you know. When you explain to Aria on the way out, hey, so you go to her, and let's just say that the head coach, you know, decided they were going to stay. And you tell your kids, hey, it's time for us to go. And Aria's like, hey, what's going on, Dad? Hey, I'll explain it to you in the car. Well, Aria already knows she has the respect of her dad. She knows her dad makes good decisions. Aria's not going to say, no, you got to tell me now, or I want to play her away. She's not going to do that. She's going to say, okay, Dad, and because you've let her know that, hey, I respect you enough to tell you, but I'm going to tell you when we get in the car.
Yeah.
So she respects you enough to listen and say, okay. And then y'all get in the car and you explain it to her and you go, yeah, Dad, that was a good call.
Yeah. I'll tell you something else that's super important that matters in situations that doesn't get talked about a lot is, so, you know, I talk to the coach, ultimately make the decision to leave, and we all leave and everything's good. Well, in our little group chat with the ball tournament, all the mamas popping in that group chat talking about how proud they are of the coach. All the while I know that I drove that decision.
But he's the head coach.
But what I did not do was pop in the group chat and go, actually,
no.
that was like
So
I actually just got in and also expressed my support for the coach's decision.
There you go.
Even
because
though I
it
know
works both ways.
Yes.
So we said that when you know who you are, you know what to do. In that sense, you're not the head coach.
Correct.
You're a parent. And so your job wasn't to say, well, I made that call. Your job was to say, good job, coach.
That's right. And then yesterday, we saw him at the ballpark, and he come up to me and goes, man, I really am glad you talked me into getting out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, so he knows.
Yes.
It doesn't matter to
No.
like things like that. When you start vying for your own glory,
Yes.
everything falls apart.
Yep.
Everything
So
falls
he
apart.
got to play his role. You got to play
and
your
no
role.
one else has to know.
No.
No one else has to know. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't care if he didn't know.
No.
I would have been fine if he said, I'm glad I decided.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, me too, brother.
Yep.
That was the right call.
Yep.
You know?
And then next time there's a question about something, he's going to come to you and ask you your opinion on it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you won't even have to solicit it
Yeah.
next time.
And he knows that he knows he has my care,
Yep.
love, and support.
You got his
And-
best interest at
Yep.
heart, and he knows that now.
Yep.
Hey, I think they're getting ready for chapel.
Yep.
So we better get out of here. Good to see y'all. Love y'all. See
Yep.
y'all next time.
Yep. This episode is also sponsored by Jared's Vape Shop. Jared's Vape Shop is going to sponsor
okay.
this episode.
So we'll take anybody's money now. huh?
anybody.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.